Welcome back to 10 Minutes to Higher Leadership. I'm Carl-Ann Ferguson, leadership change expert and CEO of Propel Forward. Today we're going to be talking about a very different topic, and that is my boss is psycho. And it's all about surviving the wrath of the psychologically unhealthy leaders that you may have to deal with in your organization. Luckily, this doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it can leave a wake of destruction. And so I want to give you tips on things that you can do to navigate through these awful waters. All right, so I'm going to have to say a few disclaimers, right, about this topic. One, and first, is it's probably going to take me longer than 10 minutes to broach this subject. And I hope that you find that helpful. So I'm not going to try to keep to just the 10-minute rule here. And let me say up front that I have a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology. So I'm not an expert on mental health. I'm an expert on organizational and leadership behaviors. I am a psychologist, but I'm not a psychiatrist. I can't diagnose anybody. And I'm not here to help you diagnose anybody. I'm just going to help you identify some patterns you might see and to know better how to respond in that situation. My dad is psychologically unhealthy, and so I had to learn how to navigate through that behavior. But doing that at home versus doing it at work is still different, and there were some interesting things I learned about those differences. And so a lot of this is sharing my own experience, because when you've had that experience as a child, you know how to see it more quickly than other people see it. Maybe that's one of the reasons I went into psychology in the first place. So I'm hoping that these tips help you. I also want to share that there are many leaders in the workplace who have psychological challenges and who are wonderful leaders, and they're great to work for. That I have been proponents of people who maybe in the past had some issues, got it taken care of, moved forward. We need to let that history go. Those are not the individuals that this is about. This is about the ones who have such a self-concept that they don't think there's a need to do anything about their psychological issue. My first experience, I was totally unaware that this person really truly was psychologically unhealthy at first. I just didn't think I would find this at work, even though my dad, he was a chief engineering manager, and I'm sure he made people's lives miserable. I just never had equated that. So when I was working at this company, I was actually not reporting to this senior executive. The only time I had seen her at the time was during her all-hands meetings with her departments. And because I was dotted line, I attended those meetings. And that was when I should have noticed it, because of the narcissism involved. And narcissism is a common trait a lot of times with some psychological illnesses, and it's a grandiosing of themselves. And she would, at the introduction, it was the weirdest thing. She would talk about her money. She would talk about her status. She would talk about things like her big house and her horses. They were so inappropriate comments that had nothing to do with the topic she was going to talk about. And yet she wanted people to know she had this status and this power. I also knew she surrounded herself with yes people, both men and women, who would do her bidding and tell her what she wanted to hear. And some of them were cruel in their own right. So intuitively, I guess I knew, stay away. So that was a good thing. But then the company was going through a major downsizing. Now, we had already been through a couple of these. And this leader, this senior executive, did a major coup. She was smart, very smart. This was a brilliant move. She said, I'm going to take over this different group and I'm going to embed them into my department and have my folks cover it, and we'll get rid of all these people. She had recently hired an ex-military leader as one of her directors. And that was a smart move too on her part, because now she had somebody willing to follow orders. And so she had him go out and do her dirty work. He went out to everyone who was involved and told them what was going on and how this was going to affect them and that this change was occurring. And he, I don't think, ever knew what he had signed up for. And it was clear that some of the information he was giving us was just wrong. Either I just listen to this or I try to at least have a conversation with her to say, look, these skill sets are extremely different. The knowledge that you have to be able to do this work is not the same as what was under her current umbrella. And at first I thought she was real approachable. You know, she said, yep, we'll have this meeting, went to her office. She welcomed me in. I'm like thinking, okay, this is good, just a calm conversation. You know, I knew that there was a good chance that nothing would happen, but I just wanted to make certain that the decision was made off of the right data. And then it happened. The look she gave me. Her pupils dilated, her teeth clenched, her whole muscles and jaw in her face got extremely constricted. And she glared at me with an intense look that if she had had a knife, I swear she would have cut me in half. And I thought, I know that look. I've seen that look. That is not a good look. That's my father's look before a rage attack. And then you could see it boiling up in her. Who was I to confront her? Who was I to challenge her thinking, her judgment? And she started lashing out with exactly those kind of words. Well, I knew at that point in time I just needed to get out. I knew at that important time to find some excuse to get out of her office. So I said, you know, I just wanted to bring this to your awareness, but obviously you've already looked at this and I'm late for a meeting, and I got out. When I got back to my office, I called some of my friends who worked for her and I just said, oh my gosh, now I know what you mean, because I just had this encounter. And they started talking about her as, you know, yeah, you got to be really careful. We should have warned you. You got to go and you just have to step on eggshells and you don't want to get her riled up. And I just was like, oh my goodness. They are just trying to keep the peace and keep her from boiling over. They also said things like, you know, I think that when I meet with her, I just rub her the wrong way. And I said, I think anybody could rub her the wrong way. If you dare disagree with her, you're going to rub her the wrong way. And another person said, you know, I don't think I'm quite smart enough to be effective with her. She always seems to be acting like I'm stupid. And I was like, you're not stupid. That is not the issue. She is just trying to assert herself as being smarter than everybody else. I mean, I was just like, I can't believe that they're taking all of this on them when it's obvious that this leader has a problem. So that night, I also called a friend of mine who is a corporate lawyer, Patricia. And Patricia was nice enough to talk me through some of this, and she gave me some of the best lessons I had learned. Because at this point, I really didn't think that people like my dad could be at work. You know, it's ironic because, of course, like I said, he worked in a management position, but I couldn't see that that could actually happen at work, and I hadn't had that happen before, so it just didn't fit. So when I called her, I didn't know really what I was asking. I was just like, I wanted just to do something. And so I said to her, what can be done? You know, and I told her the background on this woman, and she said to me, well, what do you want, Carl-Ann? Do you want to work for this woman? I said, hell no. Not just no, hell no. And then she said, well, okay, so you're okay with not working for this woman and going somewhere else? I said, yeah. And she goes, well, what do you want then? And I said, you know what I really want? And I had to think about it. It's like, what I really want is that she is not able to abuse people like this anymore. I want to do something so that she can't treat other people this way that she keeps treating even people within her own team. And she said to me, "You can't control this. You can only decide what you want to do, only decide what you need to do for you." She said to me, "Carlan, unfortunately, I see this type of thing all the time." And they usually don't win those cases because that executive has been so good at positioning themselves in a positive light with the senior staff. Then once behind closed doors, that's when they show their true colors, especially with people who are in a lower power position than they are. Then they really let it all out, but they make certain they do it behind closed doors. They're extremely smart, and they're very good at manipulation and very good at hiding their tracks. Then Patricia said to me, "Carlan, you asked how they can do this to other people. Recognize that when you're asking that, you're attributing your own moral values, your own empathy onto this individual. And they are incapable of those moral values and that empathy. They are only capable of thinking of themselves." Now, the only positive I can tell you is that eventually enough people will complain and the person will get removed. And when this happens, the company is going to give them a big fat package to go away. And that executive will never, ever recognize that they did anything wrong. And so they will go out and think that they are just as great as they think they are and apply for a job somewhere else. And when that hiring company calls to get feedback on them, the other executives are not going to touch that. The companies are so scared of legal risks that they're not going to say a word. And so the person will get another position. And the cycle will start again. And for a while, they won't get noticed. And then it'll happen to somebody. And somebody will complain. And that person will probably get fired. And then another person will complain. And a person will get fired. And it'll go on until hopefully the person retires. I got off that call with a very heavy heart. I was hoping for better information. And I also knew at a gut level that that was very true. There were 2 more times in my career where I had to deal with individuals who were psychologically unhealthy. And they made other people and my lives miserable. But I could see what other people couldn't see earlier on because of my background. I knew how they manipulated. I knew the signs. I knew the narcissism. I knew that look. And I knew what that look meant. Not only did I know these things, but I felt a need to protect other people from these individuals. I think part of that was just me making certain that other people didn't have to experience what I had experienced in my life. So I was very motivated to stop it. I raised both of those issues to the CEO because I was in a position level high enough to be able to do that. In both cases, the CEOs took no immediate action. After all, this is not the individual they were experiencing. And even though I had support in the organization, they couldn't see what I and some of the others could see. So luckily, over time, other people got the courage to come forward. And these executives were eventually removed. The point in sharing the story is not that you follow in my footsteps. Oh my goodness, that has consequence and risk to it. You need to decide what your personal choice and response is. But what I want to do is share with you some more insights on these individuals that can help you make a decision about what you want to do. First, one of the first questions I get asked is, how in the world do these people get promoted up the career ladder and into positions of authority? Well, they're not stupid. And in fact, they can be quite bright. There are times when their IQ is even higher than the normal population IQ. So they have intelligence, they have abilities, they know their fields, so that gets them noticed. And then with that ability to manipulate, they make certain that their bosses see them in a certain light. They are showing a very different picture of themselves up the chain of command than they are maybe to other people. And some of them can be wonderful charmers, turning it on whenever they need to. So being funny, sharing stories, laughing and joking, and so people are like, I really like this person, until they get behind closed doors and they disagree with them. So all of these things can lead to the person becoming this image of what they should. They're smart people. They'll figure it out. What do I need to do to get to the next level? And they'll set their plan. Second question, what makes them so livid? What flicks their switch? At both home and work, these people are used to people doing what they want and trying to please them. And the way that they have been able to get people to walk so carefully around them is that when they're angry, those tone and nonverbal can be filled with such hate and disgust that it hits us at a primal level, and people cower and they apologize and they leave. And this then reinforces the person that they are the alpha. To us, it feels like just a lion has tried to attack us. And as I said before in my example, it feels like a knife could have cut through you. But these people aren't going to use those kind of weapons. They're not sociopaths, right? So their choice of weapon is going to be their words and their power. But both leave scars. I want you to recognize that although the attack feels personal, it is not about you. Understand that this leader's brain is not wired like other people's brains. MRIs have shown that based on some different psychological dysfunctions, they just can't access the parts of the brain that have to do with empathy, that have to do with moral values, that have to do with that ability to connect with other people. And so they're just incapable of that. In addition, their extreme narcissism is going to make it very hard to listen to anybody who disagrees with them, because that is going to challenge their position power and their image of who they think they are as this person who's of higher intelligence. Because in their mind, they have this inflated view of themselves, and that's hard to maintain. If you are the smartest person on earth and you just heard somebody challenge your thinking and they had a good argument, you're mad if you're them, because now that has challenged your self-concept of being the brightest person in the room. And they will defend that concept to death. Most people are not used to having anyone in their life look at them with that look of contempt and repulsion. This leaves the person wondering, what the heck did they do to cause this in an individual? Because they've just never seen this. So it had to be something they did. Don't go down that path. I'm going to say it again. Don't go down that path. You didn't do anything wrong. This has nothing to do with what you did. It is their distorted view of their own reality. Look, I've seen way too many people, years later even, still trying to figure out what they did to this individual. And it hurts their self-esteem and it hurts their self-concept. And they're just not recovering from this. That's how deep these scars can be from these individuals. I want you to heal yourself first. Use your empathy on yourself. You should have never experienced something like that. Okay. Here's another question I get asked. Well, what happens, Carl Ann, if you stand your ground? Oh boy. If you don't cower and you stand steadfast, that's going to infuriate them. And they're going to go straight to revenge. Now, this is where it gets really different from addressing an individual at home who has the same problem versus at work. I know at home, with my dad, when I was a kid, or teenager even, I could stand there quietly with this look of defiance, just like steadfast. Well, he would assume because I went quiet that it was a win, and he'd let go because he already knew he had control of the house. That's not the case at work. When you confront them, when you stand up to them, oh, they know you see them for who they are. And that's dangerous to them. Now you're a threat because you could help others see them for who they are. At that point, you're going to become their target. Now they're probably going to make it a full-time project to go after you. They want you to either leave the organization or get fired from the organization to prove they're right, they're better. They're well aware that you are now on to them. They know you're not going to follow their orders. They know you're not going to laugh at their jokes. They know that you are not going to be supportive of them and hide any mistakes they make. This is scary for them, and they want to get you out of there as quickly as possible. So to do that, they're going on a witch hunt, and they are going to find anything they can to discredit you. Now, if this happens, you want to make certain that you start documentation right away. Make sure you go back and you look at those patterns of when they started to attack you and document them. What were the dates? What were the times? What happened? And I hate to say this, but it's true. You're going to need this because they're going to go bend the ear up about you to their higher up levels who have seen a very different person than what you've experienced. And so you're going to need to have anything that counteracts what they're saying. And this is where your smarts are going to come in. Right? You want to also make certain you're looking through the organization to see who else they're attacking, because it's easier to fight back if you have additional people who have experienced that same version of that person. This is going to allow you to join forces to have some support. The other thing I want to say to you is make sure you tell your boss, unless it's your boss, HR, legal, whoever it is that you feel comfortable can have some action on this individual. You want to make it known right away what you believe is going on. It's not easy to address these individuals because, as I mentioned before, not everybody's seeing the same thing you're seeing. Trust your heart and your gut about what you should do in the situation. And whatever direction you choose, please don't feel guilty about it. You're not the one who should feel guilty. They should feel guilty. But unfortunately, they don't have the capacity to feel guilt. Okay, last thing. Let's talk about what you can do to make sure that this doesn't happen to your direct reports. You may have a manager on your team who has these same characteristics, and you might not know it, because remember, they're really good at showing a different person to the people who are in a higher level position who have power. So if somebody on your team comes complaining about this type of thing, don't dismiss it, just thinking, okay, well, that's not anywhere close to how I experience this individual. Instead, really take them at their word and try to understand what's going on. Take it seriously and interview some other individuals who at lower position powers who might be experiencing that manager in the same way. Don't be the one responsible for promoting them up to a position of even higher power. Okay, until next time, keep rising to a higher level of leadership. Now, before we go, I need to address one thing. Usually I'm very good at keeping the cats out of the room while I'm recording, but I got really into this conversation and I missed it. So this one behind me, whoops, this way, that's Cupcake. Cupcake, say hi. And the other one you saw coming in and out is Baloo. So now you know those are my blooper cats and they somehow showed up. Apologize for that, but next time we'll try to take care of it.